Hello, today we'll be presenting our final comprehensive case study, and we are going to talk about the peanut butter falcon, presented by Nikki, Ernie, Gabby, and Dresden. The theory we'll be representing here is the model of human occupation, or MOHO, and we will also be referencing the applied behavioral frame of reference.
So we're going to talk about the introduction. This is going to be about Zach, who is a 22-year-old male with Down syndrome, living in a state-run nursing home due to a lack of family support. Zach demonstrates strong motivation and a desire for independence, dreams to become a wrestler, and seeks meaningful roles. This case highlights the importance of occupation, environment, and self-demonstration. So we chose the model of human occupation because it really helped us understand who Zach is, what motivates him, what he values, the habits he builds, and how his environment either supports or limits his independence. To go along with that, we added the applied behavioral frame of reference. While MOHO helps us understand why Zach behaves the way he does, the applied behavioral FOR helps us understand how to shape safer and much more functional behaviors using modeling, repetition, and reinforcements. So together, the MOHO gives us the why and the applied behavior gives us the how. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the presentation. Going on to the next slide, we're going to be looking at the OTPF4. Starting off with the client factors, this will be Zach. So he has an intellectual disability known as the ID, and sometimes shows highlighted emotional responses. But he also has a strong values like wanting freedom, connections, and meaningful activities, especially wrestling, as I mentioned before. So we looked at his occupations. Zach is mostly independent when it comes to the ADLs. His IADLs are more limited, especially things like managing money, transportation, and safety. Socially, he really wants friendship and a leisure. He loves wrestling, swimming, and traveling. Moving on to the performance patterns, one of his biggest habits is wrestling. His routines are mostly controlled by the facility, which limits his independence. His main role right now is being a resident and aspiring wrestler and friends. Finally, we'll move to the environment, which shows both barriers and supports. So going with barriers, this is including the institutional living and limited autonomy. But there are also strong supports like Tyler, Eleanor, and the staff who help encourage his engagement and skill buildings. Together, these factors gives us a full picture of Zach's strengths, challenges, and where OT can really make a meaningful impact. Moving on to the next slide. Here, we'll talk about the MOHO, which is a great fit for Zach, as I said, because it focuses on how much motivation. Something he has a lot of. He's really driven by activities and roles that matter to him, like wanting to be a wrestler. It also addresses his habits and routines, which impact because most of his daily structures is controlled by the facility. Again, he doesn't have any opportunities to build independence routines on his own. So the MOHO also highlights how the environment aspects participation. In Zach's case, his environment limits his autonomy, but he also has key supports that we can build on. And his model works especially well for individuals with intellectual and development disabilities because it looks at the whole person, their structure, their routines, and their environment. But overall, the MOHO fits Zach because he's motivated. His environment can restrict his participation, and he's still developing his role. This model helps us support who he is now and who he wants to become. So now I'll pass it to Dresden.
All right, I'm Dresden, and I'm going to be talking about how MOHO is applied to the client, the group, or a group and a population, referring to our movie. So I got 3 different ways how it applies to a client. It is motivated, purposeful, or it shows that he is motivated, purposeful, and capable of skill development through supportive routines. 2, engagement increases when occupation matches his interests like wrestling and friendships. So that was a really big driving factor in what he was pursuing and what he was going for. Very big theme. Anytime Zach, our main character, met Tyler, he was very big on being friends with him and talking with him, and then going and meeting and finding his his favorite wrestler. And that was one way that made him continue to push forward on what he wanted to do, and that was a big motivating factor. Number 3, impact, improve self-esteem, autonomy, and consistency in daily tasks. So because of the fact that he had those driving factors, it allowed him to be able to do more for himself and be more motivated to do different things that involved that. So he went through a whole training regime with wrestling with the wrestler that he was really fond of, and going through that process, it allowed him to continue to grow and gain confidence in himself. Have somebody who was in his corner like Tyler and his caretaker, and going through that. How it applies to a group: there's also 3 ways here. Tyler and Eleanor influence Zach's habits, routines, and behaviors. So you see with Eleanor, as her being the person who is with him in the retirement home, that she controls or has some control about what he does and when he goes and does things. And that has been the big thing. And then when he meets Tyler allows him to be himself and allows him to do more that he wants to do and try to find ways to help him be able to express himself. So you see very big differences between the habits, routines, and behaviors that allow that to happen. And Zach feels more of himself whenever he acts like how Tyler allows him to. 2, social environment becomes therapeutic. So him being out in a different area, not just being in the room or in the nursing home, allows him to be himself, and that gives him more belonging, more purpose whenever he's able to do so. Involves modeling emotional support and shared roles. So Tyler and Zach also both focusing on surviving as they're going through this whole process, finding food, things like that, relying on each other, that allowed his social environment to be more therapeutic than anything else. And then 3rd, group participation strengthens Zach's volition and confidence. Once again, back to Zach and Tyler fighting to survive in this area that they're floating through, and finding the best ways that make it wherever it works for them. Finally, when we talk about applying MOHO to a population, adults with intellectual disabilities often face limited autonomy in institutional settings, barriers to meaningful occupations, restricted participation due to stigma, and lack of community programs. So we see that Zach is very capable of doing a lot whenever he's with Tyler. But whenever he's in the nursing home, he's limited on what he can and cannot do because people are viewing. Well, a big thing that Tyler says himself is like fighting for Zach to be himself. He said, "Don't talk to him like he's for this purpose." He said retarded in the movie, but that's not how we accept it. But he goes and he's advocating for him, saying that he is a person that can think, he can do these things, he can do different things and be great himself, like allow him to be able to express that. And and then that's really big due to the stigma around Down syndrome, barriers to meaningful occupations. Once again, because they think that he can't do these things, they don't allow him to. And MOHO highlights the need for choice-driven environments, role development, and opportunities for meaningful engagement. So not limiting somebody just because of the fact that they may have an intellectual disability, but they are still very aware and very able to take care of themselves, be able to do different things. And Zach was showing that he was able to, he just wasn't at that level that a lot of people would expect. And so because of that, he was viewed as somebody who was less than and not able to do what he was supposed to do, which is unfair to him. But yeah.
Hey guys, so we're diving into the behavior frame of reference, a key concept in occupational therapy, and we'll see it come to life through the journey of Zach in the film The Peanut Butter Falcon. The core belief of this frame of reference is simple. Behavior is learned and can be changed through reinforcement. This is why it fits Zach. His progress, leaving the facility, learning to fish, building a raft is all a result of reinforcement, modeling, and repetition in a natural, real-world context. Function versus dysfunction. This is where we define Zach's starting point and his goal. Dysfunction, his starting point. When we first met Zach, he exhibits poor ADL independence, being dressed and bathed by caregivers, and impulsivity/unsafe choices, running away from the facility, which is significant high-risk behavior. He is living a life of limited problem solving. Function, his goal. His journey is all about achieving function. He is working towards self-directed routines, such as setting his own goals like finding the wrestling school, consistent ADL, IADL performance, learning to fish, building a fire, cooking his catch, and all complex IADLs. Self-decision making, relying on Taylor learning what to trust and understanding consequences. How can change occur? The behavior frame of reference give us the specific tools to facilitate Zach's functional change. 1. Positive reinforcement. Taylor is the main source. When Zach successfully catches a fish, Tyler offers genuine praise and a shared meal. This immediate positive outcome makes Zach want to repeat the behavior. 2. Modeling. Tyler models the desired behaviors. Zach watches Tyler build the fire, tie the raft, and navigate the river. Zach learns by imitating these functional skills. Repetition in real environments. This is the entire movie. They're repeating tasks, fishing, traveling, navigating challenges in a natural context. It's not role-playing, it's survival. This practice in a real-world setting is what increases his functional independence. Feedback and shaping. Tyler consistently shapes Zach's behavior. For example, he might guide Zach's hand while casting the net or give gentle correction on how to stay safe. Each step toward a goal is rewarding until the full skill is mastered. Assessments. This is where we connect it to the theory. While we don't see an OT during a formal assessment, the concepts are present. An OT using this frame of reference would use tools like observation checklists, such as did Zach successfully make the fire, yes or no? They would use functional independence measures. How much help did he need to fish today compared to yesterday? The occupational performance interview will reveal his true goals, getting to the wrestling school, and help structure the therapy. The behavior frame of reference teaches us that functional independence is built brick by brick through intentional learning, positive feedback, and repetition in the real world. Zach's escape was risky, but his journey with Taylor provided the perfect environment for profound and meaningful behavior change.
Okay, so headed into the OTPF4 and article review, we found an article that's called Evidence to Inform Occupational Therapy Intervention with Adults with Intellectual Disability. And this research showed that OT helps adults with intellectual disability build everyday skills and stay involved in their routines. They also showed that interventions matched with the OTPF4 ideas like skill building and adapting the environment. It fits the movie because we see those same supports helping Zach participate in whatever matters to him. This review showed the improvement of occupational performance for adults with intellectual disability, and those interventions used words like habilitative and compensatory approaches with the OTPF4 intervention process, and the findings align with the OTPF4 because it focused on enhancing participation, roles, and routines through client-centered practice. Next, talking about the intervention guidelines, how would you treat Zach as an OT using MOHO and applied behavioral FOR? And what strategies would the OT use with Zach to help him improve? Things like step-by-step task analysis, practicing everyday activities, reinforcing successful behaviors, encouraging volition through meaningful activities like wrestling, strengthening social participation with group routines, and create a consistent daily structure for safety and independence. Next, for application, 3 parts we're going into here are for the client, the group, and the population. First, how does the FOR help him as a client? He gained independence in ADLs, safety awareness, emotional regulation, self-esteem, confidence, and community participation. When we think, how does it help the group, we recognize that Taylor and Eleanor served as a supportive behavioral model and reinforced those behaviors for him. They created an emotional support and shaped routines. For population, we think about, does it help with society, and what does the movie show about adults with Down syndrome? It demonstrated the need for autonomy-based programs for adults with intellectual disabilities, and it showed the importance of having a supportive environment as well. For expected outcomes, if we used MOHO and behavioral FOR with Zach, what progress could we expect? We could think of improved ADL and IDL independence, better decision-making, safety awareness, stronger social participation, increased self-confidence, ability to take on meaningful roles, and greater community integration. These are not just hypothetical outcomes. This actually happened in the movie as we saw the improvement that Zach had. Thank you for watching our presentation. Here are our references. Have a good day.